Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Dynamics Download Webinar, Microsoft Dynamics SL 2011 Web Apps CU1. My name is Tracy Peterson, and I will be your host for today. As a reminder, all attendees are in listen-only mode and will remain muted throughout the webinar. If you have any technical difficulties or questions that arise throughout the webinar, please use the questions pane on your webinar console to submit those items, and I will assist you as needed. All content-related questions will be held and addressed in time. We have reserved at the end of the webinar for Q&A. Should you have any questions, please feel free at the end. If they haven't been answered by Jeff, feel free to email msdynamicsevents@gmail.com. Our presenter for today is Jeff Suen. He has some great information to share with you. And I'm sure that you're going to find that information very useful. With that, I'll let Jeff take it over from here.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and thank you everyone for taking time out of your day to learn about some of the great release that we just had here. Again, Dynamics SL 2011's Web Apps Cumulative Update 1. So today's session, we're going to spend talking about, well, Jeff, what are web apps? So we'll kind of start at the high level and kind of give you a little bit of the history and a little bit of the idea behind what web apps are and what makes up a web app, Jeff. Secondly, we're going to cover what just released just several weeks ago, the new Web Apps Cumulative Update 1, what's included in that. We'll talk about that. But more importantly, we're going to go ahead and do a live demonstration of those web apps so you can see them live and get see things at firsthand. Then last but not least, we will talk about our continuing web apps roadmaps. Web apps don't stop with this one release. It's going to be continuing on and on and on. So we'll give you some insight into exactly when things will be happening in the web apps area. As Tracy said, if you have any questions, you can ask them, but we are going to address them at the end of this session. But I have left some time, so hopefully we'll have plenty of time to get to those questions. With that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So first, we're going to talk about this idea of web apps. What is a web app and why do we have this? Well, we're all very familiar with Dynamics SL, that if we need to get access rights to things or open or view information in Dynamics SL. Right now, the way you need to do it is you need to be on some type of desktop machine. What that generally means in our world is some type of Windows type of desktop, where either you log into the rich client and log into the screens, or you go through something potentially like the business portal, which we've had around for a while. But as you know, there are some limitations. The world we live in now is more of a continuing to expand where you do work and where you want to access your work. So we wanted to be able to expand the access to Dynamics SL to things like tablets or to your smartphones, because we know that that's where you're doing a lot of your work, and I know a lot of us, we live in those areas. We live in working on those different devices as well as our desktops. So the idea behind a web app is we wanted to be able to provide new ways to access information across all three of these areas, whether it's a desktop, whether it's a tablet, or whether it's a smartphone. So how are we doing this, and what is the process that we're doing? Well, let's take a quick look at that. The first thing we did is we took what is probably our biggest focus or biggest group of users that would need something to be on a tablet or on a smartphone. If you think about that, who are those people that usually are doing things remote? Well, it would be a lot of our project roles. So we said, okay, we've got a lot of stuff to do. The first place that we're going to focus on is the project roles. And what we're doing is we're building these project roles, and we're doing it in a two-step process where the first thing we do is we create a web service. And give me a second, I'll show you on the next slide what I mean by a web service. And then the second thing after that is that we're going to go ahead and come up with what's the user interface for that. So what a user interface is, what we'll be showing today is, again, we'll talk about a web service, and then the nice pretty picture of the interface that gets you to the data. So it's kind of a two-step process to create a web app. First the web service, and then the web app. With that, let's go ahead and take a look at it. So what are web services? Is it just a buzzword? I've heard this word before. How does this impact me? And I came up with a bunch of different ways to kind of explain it, and you can kind of choose the one that maybe makes the most sense to you. The first way is to think of it's the way to get data in and out of Microsoft Dynamics SL. So how do I get data in and out of it? It gives me a programmatic way to get that data in to SL to make sure it's validated and a way to get it out. Second thing to think about it is whenever you open up a screen in the rich client, whether it's the journal transaction screen or the project charge entry screen, you know that every time that you open up a screen and you're going to different fields and looking up and entering in values, you're always getting that validation of the data. So it's the kind of the business logic and data validation. So that's what a web service is also providing programmatically, is that if you're going to pass data to a web service, and if that web service is supposed to put data into Dynamics SL, it's going to make sure that it's going through the proper data validation and business logic. Now the reasons for a web service is, well, a web service can be used to connect an existing or legacy system that you might not be in a situation that you want to sunset or get rid of. And you want to say, okay, I'd like to push things. We've got our own internal time card system, and I know that you have a time card web service. Can we connect them? And the answer is, of course, yes. Now, with a web service, you can connect to it with your own interface. You could rate your interface in Microsoft Excel and use web services to connect data and send it to your expense or time card area. And web services can be used by a wide variety of people, whether it's a customer, meaning you as the customer could use it, using your internal developers to connect to it. Partners can do it for you, as well as ISVs or independent software developers, people that create those third-party products. They can also use them as well. Now these are the web services that are currently available, and the latest one that was released would be the Project Time and Expense Approval web service, and that came out with Dynamics SL 2011 Service Pack 2, which released in September of last year. The next is a list of just some of them, because we've actually gone beyond this, but this is a list of some of the ones that are either in the process of being created or finished at this time. So just to kind of give you an update, and maybe if you're thinking, hey, yeah, web services, I could really use that with this old process, just wanted to give you a highlight right now of what currently is available and what will be coming soon. Now, web services don't stop there. They will continue to be built. This is where we're currently at with the web services. So we talked about the web services. Now let's talk about the fact that we have these new user interfaces, or we're referring to them really as our web apps. And what are they? Well, just about 2 weeks ago, we released something called Microsoft Dynamics SL 2011 Web Apps Cumulative Update 1. Cumulative Update 1, for those of you who have been a long time, is the equivalent of saying Service Pack. So it's kind of the new terminology that we're using. So just to keep you on your toes, Service Pack really is what we're calling now a cumulative update. Now we originally released our first time entry using these web apps back in September of last year, around with Service Pack 2, and now we're releasing a whole new set of web apps. So the first one that we're releasing is an updated project time entry, and this project time entry supports either the standard business portal time entry screen that you're probably used to seeing, as well as the Project Flex Time. And for those of you not familiar, Project Flex Time is an alternative way to enter data time entry into the business portal screen using the new interface, which we'll see here just in a little bit. The next is that we now have support for doing correcting time cards. So if you do submit your time card for approval and it does get rejected, no problem. You don't have to jump out somewhere else to correct it and submit it. You can do that, of course, right inside of the same time entry screen. The next one is around a type of time card called a T-type time card, one that you might not know about, you might want to take interest in. The idea of a T-type time card is that you can go into the rich client and I can set up the fact that Tracy's going to be doing the following projects for this week and set up her kind of her preloaded time card for her. And then when she needs to go ahead and do her time, she just needs to pull it up and it'll be pre-populated. She just needs to validate, maybe make some adjustments, and then go ahead and submit her time. So lots of things obviously around the time entry piece. The next is around project expense entry. Just like we had in Business Portal, it's a way to go ahead and enter your time, enter your expenses for a particular project. But also what it supports now is one of the most popular and most asked for items is to have the ability to do attachments to your expense reports on the business portal. And we're happy to say that out of the box with SL 2011 Web App CU1 that we have expense reports that do automatically do attachments. So we'll take a look at that as well. Next is a piece, well, if we were living in a paperless world, we wouldn't need this, but we know we don't. So there's also included in the web apps the ability to view an expense report right on your screen. So a expense report that can be viewed and printed out to your printer so you can go ahead and maybe you need to sign it or submit it with your original receipts, whatever that happens to be. You have access rights to that as well in the web apps. Now we're doing time, we're doing expense. The next thing you would expect, of course, is that we'll do time and expense approval, which that is available as well. So you have all three of those, time, expense, and time and expense approval. And as a bonus, we also have the Project Analyst. So if you are familiar with it, the Project Analyst is available currently in the Rich Client as well as in the Business Portal. And we've taken features from both of those and kind of combined them and given you the ability to view this Project Analyst information, which is basically your financial status of your project within a new web app. And again, this web app can be viewed anywhere that you have a web browser. Now with that, let's go ahead. I've kind of given you the background on these. Let me go ahead and pause you guys for a second. So you're going to see the screen freeze, or won't see the screen freeze. And let me go ahead and switch over into my demonstration image, where we will go ahead and take a look at the new time entry. All right, I have switched back, and we are now live on my demonstration image. And we'll go ahead and walk through this demonstration. First thing to show off is that we do have the ability, of course, to go ahead as we log in to choose exactly which company we're logging into. Makes sense. Again, I'm going to go ahead and choose the first company that I'm usually in here, which is CBS. The next is we can go ahead and type in our Windows user ID. Now I'm logged into a demo image where we're using the company's Contoso as a domain, so it's contoso/SLadmin. Now, if I happen to want to, another option that I can set up in the setup area is to say, you know what, Jeff, I don't want people to have to type in their whole user ID, even though we can tell them to remember it, have the program remember it, so I don't have to type it over and over again. But the other option is you could say, Jeff, I'd rather have them use their SL login. So that's another option that you can turn on, and this changes to say SL login, and they just have to put their ID for Dynamics SL. So a nice feature in case one of those is preferable to your company. Next thing you need to do is just go ahead and type in your password. Again, the remember user ID is definitely something people are going to want to do because it's going to make things easier for them. And then after that, all they need to do is click on the login button. Now you might be asking, Jeff, how did you get this? If you notice at the top, I'm running this on my local web browser, so all it is a local address that my IT person has given to me. I can have it in my favorites. I can have a shortcut on my desktop. For people who are using other devices, tablets and smartphones, it's even better and works better because it will actually display this without the toolbar, and it can be an icon on your desktop just like you would run any other app on your machine. You can run that and get access to the information here. Now we'll go ahead and walk through all four of the areas, the first one being time card entry. As we come into time card entry, you have three different options to see your current time cards, ones that are open but that you have not submitted, and then a history of the ones that you have submitted. So let's go ahead and look at the current time card entry. And I want, okay, this is always good to do demonstrations live because there's always fun for you, isn't it? All right, I'm going to go back because I wanted to show it something quite a little bit differently. So let me go ahead and go back in. So the first thing we'll look at our current time card entry. And this is the view that I like. And the reason why I like this is because it provides probably the least amount of data entry for an end user. Now I purposely went ahead and logged into a week where I don't have any people assigned. But one of the great things about Dynamics SL is that you can assign users to a project and task. and say, Jeff, for this week, we assume that you'll be working on this project and task. So what I can do is, if I go back a week or two, we'll see that back in the 30th, I did have some items assigned to me. So I wanted to first show you that the nice thing about this interface is that it will adjust each week based on what you have assigned to you or what you don't have assigned to you. I like that because if I have gone ahead and used the feature of assigning people to a project, it's going to make the end user's time, the process of entering time, much easier. So across the top, these are my buttons to get me through the previous and the next, and also to get me back to the current time period. Below that, I'm going to see, of course, the time period range, and then, excuse me, the upper area, I'm going to see the list of projects and tasks that I'm assigned to. Now, out of the box, it is just going to show you project and task and subtask IDs, and based on the fact that those could be very long and could take over your whole entire screen. So the initial idea here is that they're going to just go with the IDs. Now, along with seeing my project and my task, of course, I can hover over it and I can see exactly what it is. So if you do want to see it and you don't have to go ahead and drill down, you can also just leave it up so I can see it. The next is I'm going to see my hours. Now, what are my hours? Well, my hours are the total number of hours that I have used to enter against this project and task out of the life of the project. Not just today or this current time period, but for the life of the project. The next is the period hours. The period hours are the hours that I've entered into this current time card. So we get to see kind of all three of them right in a row. Now I'm just going to pick any one. We'll just choose the second line item. How do I get into them? Well, if I'm on a tablet, all I need to do is my finger and touch it, or use this little mouse that I'm using on mine here. And it'll go ahead and pull up the screen for me. Again, seeing very similar things. One additional bit of information is I am seeing the document number, which is associated to all my time cards. Now, if you look on the left-hand side of the screen and kind of draw a line here, on the left-hand side, we're again seeing that whole total hours that I put in, total hours for this period, the task hours, which happens to be that all those 50 hours that I put in, of course, against this particular task. And then we're looking at estimated hours. Show me the estimated hours that are been put into the system so I can see where I am against them. So great bit of information that you'd like to see. Now on the right-hand side of the upper section, you can see whether the hours that you put in so far are billable or non-billable, and whether they are regular or overtime. So you've got all that information available at the header area here. Now, as far as entering my time, all I need to do is go into the grid. And you can see already that Wednesday has been highlighted for me, so I can go ahead and hit enter the amount and tab off. Now, as that happens, the upper right-hand corner, first the Save button comes on. Said, yep, that's right, I do want to save this. I'm just going to go ahead and save my information. Next thing is right next to it is an ability for me to write some more details about this, as well as you might say, Jeff, I did do a total of 6 hours on Wednesday, but some of those were normal, some of them are overtime, some of them were billable, some of them were not. How do I do that? That's with this little icon here. Pulls up the screen. You see it slides in nicely here. I can go ahead and put in, I was on site, and I could just go ahead and start breaking out these hours. I can say this is my over 10 hours, or I'm actually going to make them non-billable. I'm going to put them over here instead. So you have that ability to go through and distribute those hours based on the way you really need them. Again, the other screen is going to roll it up. This is a great way for you to see exactly what you need to have out there. And I apologize because my image is not opening up enough, so I will go back here and accept this and show you again. So if I need to do invoice comments, I can click on the invoice comments button, new notes, on the on-site installation. So I have some invoice comments that I could go out there, and like we have in other areas, you can have multiple comments that you want to save against that. So no problem there. We support that. So as I go back, we have, again, our hours and the ability to see how that information is broken down. Besides that, after we're done with entering our time for a particular item, now, the reason why I like this view, just as a side note, is that because I can see that one project and task and see all the dates in my time period and be able to enter in there. So I feel that's going to be a very easy way to do things. Now as we go click on the back arrow and we go back to the original screen, you can see that we have the ability to enter in new items. Just for fun, to make a little more sense and less cluttered, I'm going to jump into the next time card period where we don't have anything signed and use the new button. Now if I click on the new button, it scrolls in from the side, nice little, again, works very well on a tablet, that I have the ability to go ahead and then start choosing a new project. So right next to all the icons, you could go ahead and, of course, type in values if you already know them. But if you don't, you need to look them up. You can go ahead and use these magnifying glasses. So if I click the magnifying glass next to project, I can choose any of the items that are out there. Let's just choose this one for fun. And I can do the same thing for my task. And then I could go through and do, if I had a subtask set up. Now, what you'll notice, too, is that some of these fields are displayed, but they're disabled. I can't get to them. I can highlight them, but I really can't change them. And that's because what we've done with this is use the Project FlexTime functionality, jump out, that allows me to go in and turn on hide fields, show them, but keep them disabled. You have all that functionality of all those fields that could be on there. So I could get rid of the ones I don't like, I could turn on the ones I like, or just show them for informational purposes. So I think that's a great bit of functionality that we have there. So I put in the basic information around the project. I can click Save. It'll bring me back out here. And if I go ahead and open it up, we see that it's ready for me to start putting time in. So great bit of functionality and feature there. Very, in my mind, very, very simple. Now other items that you'd want to do, we're in a time card, and let's go back to that previous one that has lots of hours. We see our total hours of 69. If we wanted to get, that's the total amount of hours. It's not breaking it down by anything. So if I wanted to see that, I could click on the hours, and it would pop up and show me, yep, this is what makes up your 69 hours, and it would show me what's billable, what's not, what's overtime, and so forth. So you have that ability to view that. Likewise, if I accidentally put a new line item into the system and realize, oops, I didn't mean to do that, I want to delete it, or I want to change it, you have that functionality. If we click on the Edit button, what becomes enabled over top of all these is that we have a change or delete. So I can hit delete, and it would get rid of that line item. Or I hit change, and it allows me to go in and make some adjustments to these items that are on there. So I can scroll up and say, oh, that was the wrong one, and I need to change that, and so forth. So I have that bit of functionality as well. We can also put comments against this entire item. Okay, so that one was, oh, that was a time card for my presentation when I was creating this deck. So I have that time mets out there as well as a summary button at the top as well. That's going to give me some high-level information. Now, the other thing it's going to do for me as well as giving me the high level is it's going to allow me to delete something. So if I put a time card in, or it's going to allow me to change from looking at regular time cards to looking at correcting time cards and making adjustments to those as well. So you have that bit of functionality as well. So clicking on the back arrow, that's going to take me out of my current time entry. Now you do also have the ability that if you had an open time card, let's say we're in the middle of next week and I still have this week's time card open, I do have the ability to click on open time cards, and that's just going to show me a list, and I can of course jump into it and scroll around if I want to get there. And obviously that's faster than opening up the current and hitting the back arrow multiple times. Now in general, I don't think you'll ever have this many open time cards. If you do, there's probably a big problem. This is strictly here in this way because this is what I demo a lot. You also have a history, and that history is just going to show you, yep, this one was completed, it did get, or it's been approved, or whatever status it happens to be, and once it's completed, or it got rejected. So you can see the history of your time cards as well. Now along with that, so that gives us our current features on time card. Other items, you do have some items around settings. You can choose, in that case that you saw, I saw a bunch of time card periods. I can choose and limit how many I see. I can choose that when things are displayed on that screen, whether they sort based on the date that they were entered or based on when the project ID. So how do we want to do that? And do we want to sort ascending or descending? So you have the ability to change that. You also have to be able to allow some things around duplications. Not so much in this new PFT interface, but in the other interface that you saw briefly earlier around doing time card entry, you have that ability as well. We also have a thing around project flex time, so if you happen to go through and zero out line items or line items, what do you want to happen? Do you want to have it automatically delete that line item because you set it to 0, or let it go, or prompt you before you do so? So you have that function as well. Now, so that gives you the kind of the highlights of what's under time card entry. And the next area that we're going to look at is expense entry. So if I click on expense entry, it's going to go ahead and bring me into the ability to go ahead and look at it, create a brand new expense report, click on open expense report, or look at the history of the expense reports that have already been submitted and completed. So for our case, we'll go ahead and do new. Now we have the option, just like you could in the business portal or in the standard rich client, to be able to create an expense report and advance based on an advance, or do a repayment. So any of those are valid options. Once you choose that, it goes ahead and gives you the date, allows you to, of course, make an adjustment. You know, this was my travel for a presentation. So I was doing a presentation, and I wanted to get reimbursed for something with it. So my travel out there. Yeah, but if you had an advance, of course, that would get populated, or you have an expense, a trip or expense information that you want to keep track of. Then the next thing you do, it's going to show you what the total is out there. And of course, right now we don't have any line items, so that's going to be blank. So let's go ahead and add a brand new line item. When we do so, it's going to ask us a lot of that same information we've seen on the business portal, including our expense type. So let's go ahead and scroll down. And let's just say it was, let's call it other travel costs. I like that. So we have the ability, and of course those are standard. You set up the expense types you want. These are just pulling right out of Dynamics SL. Same with our projects. I'm just going to choose an administrative project just to get some data in here. And then again, you see these other fields that are available, sub-accounts, units, and so forth. So these are all the fields that will default in there. I can go ahead and say that I bought 4 of these and they were all $125. Tab off of it, and as you're very familiar with an expense entry, it's going to go ahead and automatically calculate what the total amount is. So it's $500. Great. Well, what if I happen to be doing something and know, Jeff, it's in a foreign currency? How can I take care of that? Well, if you have Currency Manager turned on, you'll have the ability to expand this and choose a different currency and have it automatically give you what the new amount will be. So you have ability to change your currency to save that as well. You also have the choice to say whether it's billable or not, and based on your settings, what other information. So out of the box, this is the information that you will see when you go ahead and you enter in your new expense item. Now, this one looks pretty good to me. I'm going to go ahead and accept it. And then talk about another new feature, which I think we've all usually want, and that's the idea of doing an attachment. So let's say I had a receipt for this particular item. I can choose to go ahead and put the receipt at the header of the expense report. Some people might say, hey, Jeff, just put them all at the header, save them up there, that's all we need. Or, I know Tracy always asks me, Jeff, I need your expense reports, I need those receipts. So I could go into this screen, click on the ability here. I have the ability to add a new note to talk about it, or a new attachment. Now again, I'm showing you this demonstration on a desktop machine. So what it's going to do is default to going to the standard Windows interface. So I'm going to say, yep, let's go find myself a receipt. And if I scroll down, I see, hey, surprise, surprise, Jeff has a receipt item out there. Click on OK. Click OK here. And what's happened in that clicking OK is it's taken that picture. And in my case, I have set my attachments feature to automatically save the files to my machine. So it's saved it up onto the server machine that I'm on. Now, if someone comes back in and they want to see it, or you want to view what you actually did, we'll click on here. It's going to go ahead and show you. Yep, here we have it. We've got our receipt that's been attached. It's going to even show me the details of where it's attached on my SharePoint site and so forth. And if I want to go ahead and click here, it'll actually allow me, it'll prompt me, do you want to view it? And I'll say, yes, I do. It opens up and it shows me, yep, here is the receipt that you attached to this particular item. Now this receipt, of course, is going to flow with this, so when the approver sees it, which we'll see in just a second, they can see it as well. We'll go ahead and click back, take us out of here. So now you've seen that I can create an expense report. I've added a line item and I've added an attachment, things that we've all wanted to have as far as attachments, and now you have with this new release. Now the next thing I want to show you real quickly is the fact that you can run the report or the expense report right from the screen. Now for the technical people on there, basically what's happening in the background is we do use SSRS Reports server. SSRS Report server can be deployed in any way, whether it's using SharePoint or native, and it will work. And the nice thing about this is that the SSRS Report viewer can be accessed on a tablet or a smartphone. So we can go ahead and access it. It pulls up the report. Again, you can see this is a very generic report. It's just SSRS, so of course it's 100% editable for you to make it look and work the way you want to. Then I could go ahead and print it or do what I wanted to do with that, so that we have a copy that maybe you need to sign before you send it out. The next thing after that is we can again look at open expense reports, which is just showing you ones that I have that are in process that are out there. Again, I wouldn't expect you to have that many, but you could also view them here. If I happen to have an open expense report that got rejected for some reason, I could view it there as well, open it, make edits, and move forward. And then last, of course, the expense history. Again, these are the ones that have been completed or posted, and we can take a look at them if someone has a question. Now, as far as settings, the only thing really you can change as far as settings here is how many expense reports you want to go backwards and see. So that's just a drop-down box that allows you to determine exactly what you'd like to see. So there you have the idea of doing an expense report. And the next one is for approvals, and I happen to not be logged in as an approver, so we'll just go and anybody joining late show you how you log in. Again, pretty simple, but I'm going to go ahead and log in as one of the people that I know as an approver on my database. And when I jump in, you'll see a couple of things. We'll see that we're getting some type of notification that there's something out there that needs some approvals. So approvals are available, Jeff. You're the approver. Let's go take a look at them. With that, we come into the ability. There's two different ways to approve things. One is through the time and expense approvals area, and one is through line item approvals. And that's really going to depend on how you set up your Dynamics SLs to work. I'm going to go through the first one just because that's the way it's set up. And when we log into the screen, we will see there will be two sections, a time and expense area. You saw it defaulted to being expanded. Now in this particular example, there's only 4 items and they're all out there for sysadmin. But if I wanted to, if most normal cases, you're probably going to be approving more than one person's items. So you do have ability to sort it. So we could go ahead and find a specific person and have it sort and select. But obviously in this case, we only have one person out there, and that's the SL admin. With that, across the top, you have the set all actions field. So that's either going to set them all to approve, reject, or forward. But note, nothing happens automatically. You actually have to commit those actions at the bottom of the screen for them to take action. So approve makes sense, Jeff. Reject makes sense. Forward, well, what's that for? Well, if I decide that, you know what, I'm not the person that should be approving this item, whether it's time or expense, I could go ahead and do a lookup and choose a specific person and go ahead and attach them and forward the request. Now, if I choose to take no action, or hit the clear button, that'll take it back to no action. So what we're seeing here, let's just start with time. We're seeing this kind of the high level. We're seeing, okay, as SL admin, appears that I didn't put a description out there, but if I had a description of my time, it would show up, the document, and then the period ending date, and then the number of hours. Now, you want to say, okay, I probably need a little bit more than that before I go ahead and actually approve it. So we click on the I box and the information box, and it pops up. Click on details, and it's going to pop up and show me that, oh, yep, here are all the items that are out there and in much more detail. So there we are, how it's broken out, what's overtime, what's billable, what's not, excuse me, whether it's billable or not. And then we also have the ability to view our invoice comments just by clicking on the invoice button. So you can see exactly what's out there. We can also look at the comments for the entire item as well by clicking on the comments button at the top of the screen. Clicking back will take me back here where I can, of course, go ahead and choose to take action. Likewise, in the expense area, the areas that are important to us, very similar. Again, we're very high level. It's An expense report for $255. Well, what makes up that? Well, again, we can either do details, comments, and this time attachments. So again, if you had done attachments at the header level, you could view them. But in this case, let's start from the bottom. Just kind of look at the details. Very similar type of information. Again, the details of what things are going against. And again, ability to view the notes and attachments. There is an attachment. I can click on it, pull it up, and open it up and see, that's what it was. That was the check that Jeff put into the system. So I can go ahead and validate that, yes, this is good, and I've seen the attachment to know I can move forward with approving it. Similar items, you have comments like you had in the other side, and you also have the attachments that you could have set up at the header level. Really, this can be based on what you tell your employees to do, whether you want to attach all the items to the header or do them at the detail level. So there you go. There you have the ability to do your actual approval process. Now the last item we're going to show you Project Analyst. Again, for those logging in late, we're going to log back in as my friend here, ESL admin. And let's go ahead and take a look at what is the Project Analyst. Well, for those of you familiar with Project Analyst, it's always been either a rich client feature or a business portal feature. But as you know, that required you to be in a Windows-type machine to view that information. But with the new Project Analyst, like the expense report, it's written using SQL reporting services, which means it'll be available to lots of different people on things like tablets and smartphones. And you have the top section is for an area for you to first help the system, let the Project Analyst know, what do you want to see? Well, do I want to see everything, a specific company, specific customer? So you can go through and then hit the View Reports button. In my case, I'm going to show off the fact that one of the things that you can give someone access to is the ability to be an executive viewer. What that does, we'll turn on this field, and when I hit True and choose all of my employees, it's going to go ahead and show me all of the projects that are available for me to view. In that case, it's not specifying a specific employee, and when the executive viewer comes on, it says, yep, Jeff has been set up in the system as the person who can do this, so he can look at basically all projects that are out there. Now, to view any one of these projects, all I need to do is click on the plus sign next to one of them. It's going to expand that information. I'm going to scroll down just so you get a better view of it. If you're familiar with the idea of the Project Analyst, again, we're seeing financial information, AR aging, unbilled summary, and balances information across the bottom in these grids. And like you would be expected, you can drill down to the details. I'll just choose one of these here. Let's choose the AR aging over 90. And I can, of course, drill down to the details to see exactly what makes up that amount. Clicking on the back arrow, these areas also have the ability that has graphs associated with them. These are not going to look too nice because everything's over 90 days, but of course, just to let you know, you do have the ability to view things in a graph to be able to show off to someone how we're doing. Now, along with viewing the information on the main screen and the general information about the setup of the project, you can view project and task net profit. So if I click on project net profit, it will bring up the screen to allow me to see the high level, and just as we showed before, the ability to actually drill down to the details. Now, here's a good thing to note for all of you who've maybe messed around or tried to mess around with the Project Analyst. Again, these are all written using SSRS reports, so it means that if you see there's some fields or information on this particular report that are not there, that this is just a report, just like you would have done for a Crystal report. You have that flexibility to go in and say maybe this task net profit is missing something, or you want to sort it differently. You have that full bit of functionality to go in and make those adjustments. So exciting stuff around the Project Analyst. And with that, that's the end of the live portion of my demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and pause you real quick while I switch back to my demonstration. Now, all of those are obviously very important, very cool things to see. Let me go through. And the next thing we're going to do is jump into, okay, Jeff, what are some of the details around, what do I need to do this? What are the things that I need to know about the web apps, and how are they written, all that other fun stuff. So let me go ahead and start us back up. First thing we're going to share with you is how in the world is these new web apps available across all these different items and devices? Well, the reason why is it's written something using code called HTML5. Now, just real generically, because I'm not going to get technical on it, HTML is basically what is used by web browsers to interpret the things that you see when you browse to screens. And HTML5 is one of the later ones that's been created that's more generic and can be used on more and more devices. So the nice thing about it, it means that to you as an end user, it means that you can view those pages that I just showed you today in this demonstration on any browser that supports HTML5, which means it's your desktop, your tablet, your smartphone. The other thing that's really nice about this, the way that was written, it's using HTML5, and for the technical people in the house, it's also using something called JavaScript, which gives it the buttons and pretty picture kind of looking interface. It is also written using responsive technology. What does that mean, Jeff? Well, that means that if you are running the time entry screen on your smartphone versus running it on your tablet versus running on your desktop, is it will adjust the screen to adjust to how much real estate you have for display. So in some cases where you saw me I had plenty of space to see all the line items across, to see all of the time to do all my time entry. Well, if you're on a smaller device, it might have to adjust them, maybe put them more in a column because that's just what the type of real estate you have. So that good thing about it, it's built into it, where if you were trying to go to, say, the business portal, which generally wouldn't run, but it does not have that kind of functionality built in. The next are, okay, you keep on saying it can run on anything. What does that mean to me as an end user? Well, of course, the generic things, of course it's going to run on a Windows phone or a Windows like Surface or Windows 8 or 7 type of device. You would expect that. But it also runs on other devices. So it'll run on an Android device, whether that's a tablet or a smartphone. It'll run on an iOS device. Doesn't matter if it's 6 or 7. Again, the only thing we really care about is that you have a web browser on that machine that supports HTML5. And through our testing, we've seen that, yes, those browsers on those devices will work. So think about it. I might not list your device, but if your device is, within the last, I don't know, I'm just going to do a general number, 3 years, and it has a browser that can go to HTML5, then even if I don't have it listed up here, you will more than likely have the ability to access it on that device. Again, the more important thing is just that that web browser on your device supports that. A couple side notes is that we do recommend that you are on IE 10 or higher if you are on a Windows machine. That's the one that seems to work best with HTML5 in our testing. Other things come up. Well, what are the license requirements around it, Jeff? Well, you do need to have a light user license. So if you are in the business-ready licensing world, you do need a light user license. Or if you're in the old modular base that I think is still listed, if I'm not mistaken, as a business portal user license. So you do need that license, and you need the license. Now, if you are currently on the business portal and you're using business portal right now, and you want to switch over to light user, good news for you. If you already have those licenses that work for the business portal, those same licenses will be able to be used for the light user. So it'll also allow you to move from the business portal over to light user without having to buy any additional licensing. As far as customizing it, now you saw in the time entry that we have some of that built in to the Project Flex Time screen and allowing you to adjust what you see on the screen. But in the other cases that you might say, Jeff, hey, we have something specific to, as a customer we need this, or as an industry we need this, you do have the ability to set that information up and be able to adjust it because we are going to be delivering the code to you. Now, that isn't available right at this moment as I'm speaking today, but it is in the process of going through of getting released and coming out to the web, so that will be out there soon. And what that means is that you can customize the screen to remove a field or add code, whatever you need to do. Hey, I want to get on it today. What do I need? On a system side, you do need IIS 7 or higher. You do need to install .NET Framework 4.5 on your current installation, your current server. And then you do need to be on SL 2011 Service Pack 2. Why Service Pack 2? Well, with Service Pack 2 was the first time we introduced our new time and expense approval web service. So we want you obviously to be up on that to be able to have access rights to that. So Very important, Microsoft Dynamics SL 2011 Service Pack 2. Next is, of course, you would install what comes with SL, which is the web services for Dynamics SL, the web apps that you'll install, report server for SL if you want to use the functionality of the project analyst and the reports, and again, as we said before, a browser that supports HTML5. Now, I've just showed you everything that's available today. One update. What's coming next, Jeff? Well, I can tell you that currently this is what is scheduled for our next release, which will be called SL 2015 Web Apps. Why is it called 2015? Well, in the next second half of this year, we'll be coming up with our next major release of SL called SL 2015, and in that release, we'll be coming up with additional web apps. First, it will include everything that you just saw today, so everything you saw will be great and be there. And the next thing we'll have are these items, things like project timesheets, the ability to enter in a timesheet, which is currently not even available in the business portal, but ability that if you are at a construction site or you're an admin and your job is to put everyone's time in for the week, you would have one screen to go to and not have to log out and log in. Things around Communicator, you saw that we do communicate with you when you open up and log into our web apps, but maybe the need to go beyond that. For those of you who are business portal users and using the project maintenance screen, the next set of groups and things that are indented are all around setting up and getting your project ready. You can also do things around budgeting, setting up your budgets and changing budgets and getting them approved. You can also be able to do invoice approvals, so being able to view that information out there, as well as being able to delegate your approvals. So I want to delegate my approvals to Tracy because I'm going to be out of the office. Now the last two items have been added here recently, and that's the fact that they will be working on the item request and item request approval and creating a web app out of those as well. The last one, pretty exciting, is the idea that we'll be adding some basic resource management, really employee resource management, where you can view one way. I can look at Jeff and see what projects are available to assign him to for this week or the coming week. Or the other way, I can look at a project and see who's available to assign to that project for this current week or the next week. Real basic, but a neat thing about it is that all that information has existed in SL, and now we're just going to be coming up with a web app to expose that and make it available to the end users. Now, with these web apps, the initial goal, and hopefully you're seeing it with that list that I just showed you, our initial goal is to go really after the business portal and start replicating those core used features. What do I mean by used? Well, there's lots of things in Business Portal, but we kind of know what are the top features that are actually used. And we wanted to go after them and create them. So what we did is we went ahead and with those scheduled web apps that are scheduled to release for SL 2015, we feel that when 2015 comes out, the second half of this year, that we will be hitting that initial goal. Now, we're not done with that. That is, again, initial. That's just one thing that we want to get done initially. We will continue on. We will move web apps into other areas of the product, whether we go down the financial areas, distribution areas, inventory areas, wherever that means. We will continue to expand web apps and the ability to access these things from different areas. Now, with the fact that Business Portal features will be replicated and available with SL 2015, I did want to make this announcement to you today, that the Business Portal will not be supported in future releases of Dynamics SL. That means in this particular case that the Business Portal will not be ported over to run on SL 2015. So when SL 2015 comes out, we will not be moving the Business Portal, but our feeling is that you will have all of the features that you need to start using the web apps instead. Now, that could be a shock to you or something that you were not aware of, and the next thing that we want you to do is to connect with your partners to start discussing this. So what does this mean to me? Well, some cool things that I do want to point out is that the current Business Portal and web apps will work together. So you can be running some people in Business Portal, some people on web apps, have two different people using two different screens, no problem, they work together. Do that now rather than later, implement that. Or if you want to, just as a side note, in May we'll be coming out with SL 2015 Beta. So SL 2015 Beta will be releasing, which will also have the same CU1 web apps that I talked about. And you can start, again, side by side, Look at your 2015 installation with Web Apps or your SL 2011 installation with Web Apps. Look at what you're doing with Business Portal. You might have done some customizations that are no longer needed. You might have some customizations that you do want to do in your new web apps. Start doing that now so you can start looking into that and implement them alongside each other and start developing your plan about what you need to do as far as web apps and whether the core web apps are just fine the way you have it, because maybe the big customization that you had in Business Portal was adding attachments. Well, it's already there. Or you needed to be able to hide a field in the time entry. Well, that's already there. So definitely recommend you connecting with your partners. This is where they can really help you out and help you plan where you're going to go with that. Now, as far as our release plan for web apps, this is kind of the 6-month kind of cycle that we're going to be going into. Again, back in September, you can see we released our time entry. Just this past March, we released the ones that we're showing today. The goal is for, in September timeframe, to be able to release the 2015 web apps, and then 6 months later, you can do the next set of web apps, whether those are financial, whether they're distribution, whatever those might be. Again, this is March 2015 does not mark the end. It just marks where we're at so far. The idea, again, is to continue every 6 months to release them. Now, as far as our entire roadmap, this is just, and I had just to show you where we're at. This is a little bit relevant to here, but again, just to show you where we are as far as releases. You can see we pretty much release something in every year. You can see where we are the first half of this year. The second half of this year was 2015. And then you can see that the cadence for their major releases will be every 2 to 3 years based on what we decide to do. What I mean by that is if we decide to come up with a cumulative update next year in 2015 to go on top of SL 2015, then of course that would push things out. It wouldn't be quite, every 2 years or 3 years. So we will, of course, adjust based on what we decide to come up with. And the next one is just to kind of reiterate the fact that do not look at this as actual time frames, but just to reiterate the fact that, again, we'll continue with investing in the core product, making sure that there are new features, which for those of you who've seen the 2015, there are a lot of great new features. But we'll also at the same time be releasing web apps that don't have to happen with every major release. So don't take that as this is exactly how it's going to work, but this is just more of a informational slide. Now there are sites on customer source and partner source, depending if you're a customer or partner, that are available. There's a launch site, so if you look for SL or if you look for web apps and you search on either customer source or partner source, you will find a site. You'll find fact sheets, you'll find some PowerPoints. Shortly, in a little bit while, you'll be able to download some demos to walk through this as well. Now you can also download it. So I said it is available, so you can go to either one and search for these web apps again and be able to download those as well. Now with that, we kind of run through quickly, but I wanted to give you guys some good information about what's happening in the web apps world. Hopefully you've gotten that through live demonstration and sharing you some information about where we're going to continue to go with these web apps. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. Tracy, if you have any place for me to review these questions, I'd be great to see them.
I will go ahead and read them off to you, Jeff, and there's just a couple of them at this point, but I want to thank you for your time there, Jeff. We will go ahead and open this up to questions. As a reminder, you can submit those questions using the questions pane on the GoToWebinar console. And if you have any questions that should arise after the webinar has ended, please feel free to send them to the email address that's on the screen at this time, the msdynamicsevents@gmail.com. The first question that came in today was asking if the PowerPoint deck would be available to the attendees. And I indicated that they would, if you want the PowerPoint, you'll need to email msdynamicsevents@gmail.com and request that PowerPoint, and we will get that over to you. Jeff, I did have a question about the BP being supported. Did you say that BP is no longer supported in SL 2015? This individual thought it wasn't being sold anymore, like FRX to MR transition, but is it not supported?
Cool. Very good question. Yes, we are no longer going to, first of all, we're not going to take the current business portal and port it over to run on 2015. So there will be no business portal. So you will not have business portal at all. So it is true, it is going away. So when you go up to 2015, you will no longer have Business Portal. Now, just as a side note, know that in SL 2015, we are doing a wide range of project enhancements. So all of the project tables in SL 2015 have been updated. They've added fields for company, fields for currency, and right now, as you see, that we're really focusing on web apps. We're not going to be focusing anymore on Business Portal. So it didn't make sense for us to go ahead and spend all this time making these web apps and then to go backwards and take all these Business Portal apps that we no longer are going to need because we'll have all the web apps and move them over to 2015. So most definitely, Business Portal will not be available, not just to purchase, but it will not work in SL 2015, and we will not ship an SL 2015 version of the Business Portal.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
And if they have questions on that, please hit the MS Dynamics events at gmail.com, and they will, if you have a question specifically from me, they will forward them on to me. If you want to get more details or you want to express some questions on that, completely use that email address that you see right there, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. All right. So I have a few clients asking for the system requirements for SL 2015. Will that info be available soon?
Yes, we are getting close to the beta period, and beta period is scheduled for next month. So we're in April. So beta is supposed to happen sometime in May. So as we get closer, we will get better. If you're wondering about the system requirements, you're probably wondering the same thing that most people would be wondering, and that's what I'm still waiting for. The final answer is we happen to be in this odd release cycle where right now, if we release today, of course, what would we support? We would support the latest version of SQL -1, the latest version of Windows Server -1, the latest version of Windows 8 -1. So the oddity here is we sit in a situation that by the time we find release, a new version of SQL will be coming out. So a lot of the questions are around, okay, for SQL 2014, will you support SQL 2014, and so forth. So I know that they're currently looking into that with our release schedules. I'm sure that's the question that you have. And if you do, go ahead and email me that, and I'll put you on a list and get you the information as soon as it becomes available, because they're finalizing testing and kind of developing the paths, and I don't know exactly what development is doing on that right now. So I will get more information for you on that and get that back to you. But very good question.
Okay. So do you need Project Server to do project assignments in the timesheet web app?
Okay, good question. How do project assignments, the question is, do you need Project Server to be able to do that? The answer is no. In the standard project interface for when you're setting up your projects and tasks, you have the ability to assign resources inside of there. In fact, that's the only one that's what we're assuming that you have, is that you're going to be able to show that. And that ability to assign resources in the task screen and set up the date ranges and so forth is default ability that's in there, and you do not need Project Server at all for that.
Fabulous. And will you offer any training on customizing the web apps?
Very good question. One of the things that we're looking to do in the, this is not official, so don't hold me to this, but we are now in the process of creating a release and launch schedule for 2015 where we would like to go out and kind of provide that information to people on how to customize it. So we are in the early stages of that, but the goal is hopefully in the 2015 timeframe that there will be something available for us to train you on, whether it's a webinar that you can attend or an event that you can attend to see the information. So we are looking into that. We don't have the complete details on that yet, but that is definitely something we're looking into. But very good question.
All right, and one more just came in, Jeff. Is there any timeline for source code release or available for downloading for CU1?
Yes, soon, hopefully very soon. So the question is, when can we get the code so we can start messing around with it? We were hoping the timing kind of just didn't quite work out with the release of the actual final release. It is in the stages right now. It's going through the machine right now. The code itself is done and ready to be delivered, let's just say. We're just waiting for the final internal cogs to finalize so we can get them out to you. So I can't give you an exact time, but I'm hoping here in the next, let's say the next month, hopefully less, we will have that for you. If you want to know the exact date or something, again, hit msdynamicsevents.com, or I'm sorry, at gmail.com, and shoot me an email with your name, and I will go ahead and make sure you're updated as soon as they're available. If you're looking for it too, and hey Jeff, I forgot to do this, or you're listening to this later, you can also, of course, always search on Partner Source or Customer Source for that as well.
Fabulous. Thank you. Well, there are no more questions at this time, and we are at 3 o'clock. Thanks again, Jeff, for presenting, and to all the attendees for taking time out of your day to attend our Dynamics Download webinar. Today's session was recorded, and we hope to have it available for viewing in the near future on Dynamics Downloads channel on YouTube. Our next Downloads webinar will be Wednesday, May 21st from 2 to 3 Eastern Time, and we'll be covering Microsoft Dynamics SL financial tips and tricks. We look forward to having you. Thank you, everyone.